I never expected that a simple Tuesday morning in Reno would change everything. Standing at the entrance of the botanical gardens, I adjusted my lab coat and checked my sample collection kit one final time. The spring air carried hints of desert sage and something else, something floral and intoxicating that drew me deeper into the garden paths. My name is Jessica Richardson, and I'm an allergy research specialist. At 32, I'd spent the better part of a decade hunting down rare pollens and plant compounds that trigger human immune responses. Today's mission was straightforward: collect samples from the garden's exotic orchid collection for a new study on airborne allergens affecting Reno residents. The crimson orchid stood alone in the specialized greenhouse, its petals an impossible shade of red that seemed to pulse in the filtered sunlight. This flower wasn't supposed to be blooming. Not in March, not in Nevada's high desert climate. Yet here it was, defying botanical logic with its stunning presence. I approached slowly, pulling on latex gloves and retrieving my sampling tools. The flower's fragrance was intoxicating, sweet yet complex, with undertones I couldn't identify. As I reached toward the bloom, another hand appeared in my peripheral vision. "Careful with that one." The voice was warm, confident. I looked up to find brilliant blue eyes studying me with scientific curiosity. The woman attached to those eyes had shoulder-length brunette hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore the kind of field clothes that suggested serious outdoor work. "You're collecting samples too?" I asked, not moving my hand away. Our fingers were inches apart, both reaching for the same impossible flower. "Forensic botanist," she said, extending her free hand. "Erica Sanders. And you're either a very dedicated gardener or another scientist." "Jessica Richardson, allergy research." I shook her hand, noting the firm grip and calloused fingertips. "This orchid is connected to a forensic case?" 3, actually. All involving respiratory distress, all with traces of this specific pollen. Her expression grew serious. The victims presented symptoms unlike anything in the medical literature. I pulled back my sampling tube. "Respiratory distress? That's exactly why I'm here. We've had 7 cases this month, severe allergic reactions with no identifiable trigger until yesterday." When someone finally thought to test for exotic pollen, Erica finished, her eyes lighting up with understanding. "Exactly." I found myself smiling despite the gravity of the situation. It seems we're working the same puzzle from different angles. The greenhouse suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. Erica moved closer to examine the orchid, and I caught a hint of her perfume, something subtle and clean that complemented rather than competed with the flower's exotic scent. "This specimen shouldn't exist here," she said, pointing to the plant's unusual root system. "The soil composition is all wrong, the climate's hostile, yet it's thriving." "Like it was engineered to survive here," I added, pulling out my portable spectrometer. "The pollen structure is unlike anything in my database." We worked in comfortable synchronization, she documenting the plant's physical characteristics, while I collected samples for chemical analysis. Her movements were precise, methodical, the work of someone accustomed to crime scenes where every detail mattered. "Have you considered that these health incidents might not be accidental?" Erica asked quietly, sealing her evidence bags. The question sent a chill through me. "You think someone's deliberately exposing people?" "I think this orchid appeared in Reno for a reason, and that reason has nothing to do with natural botanical migration." She met my gaze steadily. "Your allergy research, do you have access to victim medical records?" "Within privacy constraints, yes." I found myself leaning closer, drawn by her intensity and the implications of her question. "Are you suggesting we combine our investigations?" "I'm suggesting that separately we're working blind. Together we might actually solve this." The proposition was logical, professional. So why did my pulse quicken when she said it? Why did I find myself studying the way sunlight caught the amber flecks in her blue eyes? "There's a coffee shop on Virginia Street," I heard myself saying. "We could compare notes properly." "Tonight?" she asked, and something in her tone suggested the invitation meant more than professional collaboration. "Tonight," I confirmed, surprising myself with how much I wanted to see her again. As we left the greenhouse together, the crimson orchid watched us go, its impossible beauty hiding secrets we were only beginning to discover. 3 days after our greenhouse encounter, the evidence was undeniable. Erica's forensic reports matched my lab findings with disturbing precision. The crimson orchid's pollen contained synthetic compounds that shouldn't exist in nature. I was deep in spectral analysis when she appeared in my laboratory doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing that focused expression I was beginning to recognize. "Your security guard let me in," she said, setting 1 cup beside my microscope. "Told him I was consulting on your allergy cases." Which is technically true. I accepted the coffee gratefully, noting she'd remembered I took it black. "What did your crime lab turn up?" "Traces of the same synthetic pollen at all 3 incident sites. Plus something else. Each victim had been exposed exactly 72 hours before symptoms appeared." She pulled up a chair beside me, close enough that I caught her subtle perfume again. "That's not natural allergen behavior." "No, it's not." I pulled up my computer screen, showing her the molecular breakdown. "Look at these binding proteins. They're designed to penetrate lung tissue and trigger delayed inflammatory responses." Her hand brushed mine as she leaned forward to study the data. The contact was brief, professional, but my skin tingled where she'd touched it. "Someone's weaponizing plants," she said quietly. "Or testing them." The implication hung between us like a dangerous secret. The question is who and why. We spent the next 4 hours comparing case files, victim profiles, and botanical evidence. Erica worked with the methodical precision of someone accustomed to building airtight cases, while I provided the biochemical framework that gave meaning to her physical evidence. "Look at this pattern," she said around midnight, spreading photographs across my lab bench. "All the exposure sites are within a 3-mile radius of the botanical gardens." I traced the locations on her map, my finger following a rough circle. Someone's using the gardens as a distribution point. Or a testing ground. She looked up from the photos, and our eyes met in the sterile laboratory light. "Jessica, if we're right about this, we're probably in danger just by knowing it." The weight of that realization settled between us. Outside, Reno's neon glow filtered through my lab windows, casting colored shadows across our research. We were alone in a building that suddenly felt too empty, too isolated. "We should probably call this in," Erica said, but made no move toward her phone. "To who?" "We don't know how high this goes." I stood to pace, needing movement to think clearly. "And we don't have enough proof yet." She watched me move, her gaze following my restless energy. "So we keep investigating. Together." "Together," she confirmed. And the word carried weight beyond professional partnership. I stopped pacing directly in front of her chair. She looked up at me, and the clinical laboratory light suddenly seemed softer, more intimate. The rational part of my mind cataloged details, the way her pupils dilated slightly, how her breathing had changed, the unconscious parting of her lips. "Jessica," she said softly. I leaned down, drawn by forces I didn't entirely understand. Our lips met in a kiss that tasted of coffee and possibility, gentle at first, then deeper as she rose from her chair to meet me halfway. When we broke apart, I found myself studying her face in the laboratory's artificial twilight. Her cheeks were flushed, her breathing unsteady. "This complicates things," she whispered. "Everything's already complicated." I touched her cheek, marveling at the softness of her skin. "At least now it's complicated in a good way, too." She smiled, and something tight in my chest loosened. "I should probably go. Let you get some sleep." "Probably." But neither of us moved. The space between us hummed with unfinished possibilities. "Tomorrow," she said, "we need to visit those exposure sites ourselves. Field work. Dangerous field work? If we're right about what's happening, then we'd better stick together." I stepped back reluctantly, already missing her proximity. For safety. Her smile suggested she understood the subtext. For safety, she agreed. After she left, I tried to focus on the data spread across my lab bench, but my thoughts kept returning to the kiss, to the way she'd looked at me in the moment before our lips touched. The rational scientist in me warned that mixing personal feelings with professional investigation was reckless. The woman in me didn't care about rational anymore. The next evening, I found myself standing in front of my closet longer than usual, debating between professional attire and something more personal. This was supposed to be a working dinner, analyzing our field notes from the exposure sites we'd visited that afternoon. But the way Erica had looked at me when she suggested my apartment instead of another sterile coffee shop told me this was about more than evidence. I settled on dark jeans and a soft blue sweater, then immediately questioned the choice. When had I started caring so much about what another woman thought of my appearance? The doorbell rang at exactly 7, and I opened it to find Erica holding a bottle of wine and a folder thick with photographs. "Thought we might need this," she said, indicating the wine. "Some of what we found today is pretty disturbing." She'd changed from her field clothes into black slacks and a fitted green blouse that brought out her eyes. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she wore just enough makeup to emphasize her natural beauty without looking overdone. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "I ordered Thai food. Hope that's okay." "Perfect." She took in my living room with appreciative eyes. "Nice place. Very you." I wasn't sure what that meant, but her tone suggested it was positive. While I opened the wine, she spread our investigation materials across my coffee table with practiced efficiency. "The pattern's clearer now," she said, pointing to a series of aerial photographs. "Each exposure site has direct sightlines to the botanical gardens. Someone's been doing atmospheric testing." I handed her a glass of wine and settled beside her on the couch, close enough to study the photos but aware of her warmth beside me. The wind patterns support that theory. Every incident occurred during specific weather conditions. Prevailing winds from the southwest, minimal precipitation, mid-afternoon timing when thermal currents are strongest, she summarized. "This isn't random, it's methodical." The implications sent a chill through me. How many people were exposed without showing symptoms? How many more will be affected if this continues? That depends on what the real goal is. She took a sip of wine, her expression troubled. "Are we looking at a weapon test or something else?" The food arrived, providing a brief respite from the heavy conversation. We ate mostly in comfortable silence, the weight of our discovery settling between us. Outside, Reno's lights twinkled like earthbound stars, the city unaware of the danger potentially lurking in its botanical gardens. "Jessica," Erica said after we'd finished eating, "what we're dealing with here, it's bigger than local law enforcement can handle. Federal agencies then, FBI, maybe CDC." I refilled our wine glasses, noting how the alcohol was softening the edges of my usual analytical reserve. But can we trust them? Do we have a choice? I looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the concern in her blue eyes, the way she unconsciously tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when thinking 3 days ago she'd been a stranger. Now she felt essential, integral to not just the investigation but to something deeper I wasn't ready to name. "I keep thinking about what you said," I admitted, "about this being dangerous just to know." "Having second thoughts about partnering with me?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. "Just worried about what happens when we dig deeper." She set down her wine glass and turned to face me fully. "Whatever happens, we face it together. That's what partners do." "Is that what we are? Partners?" The question hung between us, loaded with meaning beyond the professional. Her eyes searched mine, and I saw the moment she decided to be honest. "I don't know what to call this," she said softly. "But I know I haven't felt this connected to someone in a long time." My heart hammered against my ribs. Connected how? Instead of answering with words, she reached out and traced the line of my jaw with her fingertips. The touch was feather-light but electric, sending warmth cascading through me. "Like this," she whispered, and leaned forward to kiss me. This kiss was different from the one in my laboratory, deeper, more purposeful. Her lips were soft and wine-sweet, and when she pulled me closer, I went willingly, my hands finding their way to her shoulders, her hair. When we broke apart, I was breathless and dizzy, whether from the wine or her proximity, I couldn't tell. "This is complicated," I managed. "I know." She rested her forehead against mine, "but I can't pretend there's nothing happening here." "I don't want to pretend either." We sat in the gathering darkness of my living room, the investigation materials forgotten, the weight of unspoken possibilities stretching between us. Through my windows, the city lights blurred into impressionistic streaks of color. "We should probably talk about boundaries," she said eventually. "Professional versus personal." "Probably." I didn't move away from her. "What did you have in mind?" "I was thinking we could figure it out as we go." "That's not very scientific." "No," she agreed, smiling. "But some things can't be solved with data and analysis." She was right, of course. The attraction between us defied rational explanation, existed outside the careful parameters of laboratory research. It was messy and unpredictable and completely outside my comfort zone. It was also undeniable. We talked until after midnight, the conversation shifting seamlessly between personal histories and professional concerns. I learned that she'd grown up in Oregon, developed her love of plants through childhood hiking trips, chosen forensic work because she believed science should serve justice. She learned that I'd been drawn to allergy research after watching a childhood friend nearly die from anaphylactic shock, that I'd moved to Reno for the job but stayed for the desert's stark beauty. When she finally left, it was with a lingering kiss at my door and a promise to meet at the botanical gardens first thing in the morning. I watched her drive away, then stood in my doorway longer than necessary, already missing her presence and wondering what we were getting ourselves into. Friday afternoon, Erica surprised me with an unexpected invitation that had nothing to do with orchids or synthetic pollen. Lake Tahoe, she said, leaning against my laboratory doorframe with that smile I was learning to associate with trouble. This weekend, we both need a break from the investigation. I looked up from my microscope where I'd been analyzing the latest batch of pollen samples. A break? We're in the middle of something potentially dangerous, which is exactly why we need perspective. She entered my lab uninvited, moving to stand beside my workstation. When's the last time you took a real weekend off? I couldn't remember. The truth was, work had been my entire life for years, a safe refuge from the complications of relationships and emotional messiness. But now, looking at Erica's expectant expression, that isolation felt less like protection and more like prison. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe we should keep working. Jessica. Her voice was gentle but firm. We can't solve this case if we burn out, and we can't ignore what's happening between us forever. The directness of her statement caught me off guard. We'd been dancing around the growing attraction for days, stealing kisses and meaningful glances but never addressing the elephant in the room. What is happening between us? I asked. Come to Tahoe with me, and maybe we'll figure it out. 2 hours later, I found myself in Erica's SUV, heading into the Sierra Nevada mountains, with an overnight bag and a heart full of nervous anticipation. She'd booked us a cabin, 2 bedrooms, she'd assured me with a knowing smile, overlooking the lake. The drive gave us time to talk without the pressure of laboratory walls or investigation files. She told me about her college years, her brief engagement to a man who'd never understood her passion for forensic work, her gradual realization that she was attracted to women. What about you? She asked, as we wound through mountain curves. Ever been married? Engaged once. To a fellow researcher. I watched pine trees blur past the window. He wanted me to give up my career, move to Boston, have babies immediately. And you chose work instead. I chose myself instead. There's a difference. She reached over and squeezed my hand briefly before returning it to the steering wheel. Good choice. The cabin exceeded my expectations. Rustic but comfortable, with a stone fireplace and a deck overlooking the crystalline water. We arrived as the sun began its descent behind the mountains, painting the lake in shades of gold and crimson. Damn, Erica breathed, standing at the deck railing. I forgot how beautiful this place is. I joined her at the railing, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her body in the cooling mountain air. The lake stretched before us like a mirror, reflecting the sky's transformation from day to night. It's perfect, I said, meaning more than just the scenery. She turned to look at me, her blue eyes serious in the fading light. Jessica, I need you to know something. Whatever happens this weekend, I don't have any expectations. I just wanted us to have time away from all the craziness. The sincerity in her voice touched something deep in my chest. Here was a woman who could have pushed, who could have used the romantic setting and the wine she'd packed to pressure me into decisions I might regret. Instead, she was offering me space, choice, respect. Thank you, I said simply. We cooked dinner together in the cabin's small kitchen, working in the kind of easy synchronization that suggested deeper compatibility. She made pasta while I prepared salad, our movements coordinated without discussion, our conversation flowing from serious to silly and back again. After dinner, we built a fire and settled on the couch with glasses of wine, the investigation files forgotten back in Reno. The firelight flickered across her face as she told me about a case involving rare mushrooms and a suspicious death in Oregon. You love this work, I observed. I love solving puzzles, especially when the solution helps people. She studied me over her wine glass. Same reason you became an allergy researcher, I'd guess. Maybe. I curled my legs under me, aware of how domestic this felt, how right. Or maybe I just like understanding how things work at the molecular level. Control freak, she teased gently. Probably. I smiled, surprising myself. Is that a problem? Only if you try to control this. The word "this" hung between us. Undefined but unmistakable. I set down my wine glass and turned to face her fully, taking in the way firelight played across her features, the gentle curve of her lips, the patient way she waited for me to make the next move. "Erica," I began, then stopped, unsure how to voice what I was feeling. "It's okay," she said softly. "Whatever you're thinking, it's okay." Instead of trying to explain, I leaned forward and kissed her. This kiss was different from our previous ones. Longer, deeper, full of acknowledgement and invitation. When she responded by pulling me closer, I went willingly, my arms encircling her shoulders as the last of my reservations dissolved in the warmth of her embrace. We made love that night with the fire crackling beside us and the lake whispering against the shore outside. Her touch was reverent, patient, awakening responses in my body I'd forgotten existed. In the flickering firelight, we explored each other with hands and lips and whispered endearments, creating an intimacy that transcended the physical and touched something deeper, more profound. Later, lying in her arms with my head on her shoulder, I listened to the steady rhythm of her heartbeat and marveled at how natural this felt, how right. For the first time in years, my analytical mind was quiet, content to simply exist in the moment without questioning or categorizing. "No regrets?" she asked quietly, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on my arm. "None," I said, and meant it completely. Saturday morning brought sunshine streaming through the cabin windows and the scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen. I found Erica on the deck, wrapped in a robe, and watching the lake come alive with morning light. "Sleep well?" she asked, making room for me on the wooden bench. "Better than I have in months." I settled beside her, accepting the mug of coffee she offered. "You?" "Perfect." She kissed my temple softly. "Absolutely perfect." Monday morning shattered our weekend bliss like glass hitting concrete. I was still floating from our time at Tahoe, my lips tender from Erica's kisses and my body humming with newfound contentment, when Dr. Marcus Bennett appeared at my laboratory door with an expression that stopped my heart. "Jessica, we need to talk. Now." My research director rarely visited individual labs, and never with that particular look of controlled panic. Behind his wire-rimmed glasses, his eyes held the kind of fear that comes from knowing too much. "What's wrong?" I asked, automatically saving my work and closing sensitive files. "Your recent medical examination results came back with some unusual flags." He closed the door behind him and activated the sound-dampening system we used for classified discussions. "Flags that have attracted attention from parties who shouldn't know you exist." The blood drained from my face. "What kind of attention?" "The kind that asks questions about rare blood types and genetic markers." He pulled up a chair, his movements sharp with anxiety. "Jessica, your blood work shows you have an extremely uncommon immunoglobulin profile. We're talking 1 in 10 million rare." I sank into my desk chair, my mind racing through the implications. How rare exactly? "Rare enough that certain government research programs have been actively searching for people with your specific genetic makeup for over a decade." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Government research programs?" "Biological warfare defense. Your blood type carries natural immunities to synthetic pathogens that most of the population lacks." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "They've been monitoring hospital databases, looking for people like you." My phone buzzed with a text from Erica. "Strange cars parked outside your building. Something's wrong." The timing couldn't be coincidental. "Dr. Bennett, how many people know about these test results?" "Too many. The lab that processed your blood work is contracted with multiple federal agencies. By now your name is probably flagged in at least 3 different databases." I stood abruptly, pacing to my window. 2 black sedans sat in the parking lot below, their occupants wearing the kind of casual clothes that screamed undercover surveillance. "They're already here," I said, pointing to the cars. Bennett joined me at the window, cursing under his breath. "We need to get you out of here, now." "Why?" "I haven't done anything wrong." "Jessica, listen to me." His voice carried the urgency of someone who'd seen government overreach before. "These programs don't respect individual rights when national security is involved. They'll classify you as a strategic resource and lock you away for voluntary testing that won't remain voluntary for long." My phone rang. Erica's name flashed on the screen. "Don't answer that," Bennett warned. "They're probably monitoring communications." But I was already connecting the call. "Erica? Get out now." Her voice was tight with fear. "I just watched 2 agents enter your building through the service entrance. They're not here for a friendly chat." The elevator dinged in the hallway outside my lab. Bennett grabbed my research files and started shoving them into a bag. "Back exit," he whispered. "Through the botanical storage area." We moved quickly through the maze of laboratory hallways, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure it would give us away. Behind us, I heard authoritative voices asking building security about my whereabouts. The storage area connected to the botanical gardens through a service tunnel. As we emerged into the greenhouse complex, I spotted Erica waiting beside her SUV, engine running. "Dr. Bennett," she said as we approached. "I was hoping you'd be the reasonable one in this situation." "You know each other?" I asked, confused. "We've never met, but I've been researching the people connected to Jessica's work since yesterday." Erica's expression was grim. "Dr. Bennett has a history of protecting researchers from government overreach." She was right. 3 years ago, Bennett had made headlines for refusing to turn over a graduate student's research on crop diseases to the Department of Agriculture. He'd fought the case all the way to federal court, and won. "Get in," Bennett said, opening the SUV's rear door. "Both of you need to disappear until I can figure out how to handle this legally." "Where can we go?" I asked, climbing into the passenger seat while Erica took the wheel. "I have a cabin in the mountains," Bennett said. "Off the grid, no digital footprints. You can hide there while I work on damage control." As we pulled away from the botanical gardens, I saw more black vehicles converging on the research complex. Through the rear window, I watched my professional life disappear behind us, along with any illusions I'd had about the safety of academic research. "How did they find out so quickly?" I asked. "Your blood work was probably flagged automatically," Erica said, taking backroads toward the highway. "The same databases that track rare diseases also monitor for genetic markers of interest to defense contractors. So this is about the biological warfare research, not our investigation into the orchids? Maybe. Or maybe the timing isn't coincidental." She glanced at me, her expression troubled. "What if someone's been watching us because of what we discovered? What if they know we're close to exposing their testing program?" The possibility hit me like ice water. If the synthetic pollen incidents were connected to government research, then my rare blood type might not be the only reason I was suddenly valuable to certain parties. "We need to assume they know everything," Bennett said from the back seat. "Your investigation, your relationship, your theoretical conclusions about weaponized plants, everything." Erica's hand found mine across the center console, her fingers interlacing with mine in a gesture of solidarity that steadied my racing heart. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "we face it together." Together, I agreed, though the word felt fragile against the weight of federal surveillance and classified research programs. Behind us, Reno shrank in the distance, and with it, any hope of returning to our simple life of laboratory work and stolen kisses. We were fugitives now, whether we'd intended to become them or not. The mountain cabin Bennett had promised turned out to be a weathered structure hidden among tall pines, accessible only by a dirt road that tested Erica's SUV's suspension. We'd driven in silence for 2 hours, each of us lost in the implications of my sudden transformation from researcher to fugitive. "No cell towers up here," Bennett said as we parked. "No internet, minimal electricity from solar panels. You'll be invisible." Inside, the cabin was spartanly furnished but functional. A stone fireplace dominated the main room, flanked by shelves of academic books and scientific journals. Bennett had clearly used this place as a retreat before. "How long do we stay hidden?" I asked, setting down my hastily packed bag. "Until I can negotiate safe passage for both of you." Bennett's expression was grave. "I have contacts in congressional oversight committees, but this will take time." A sharp knock on the cabin door froze us all. Through the window, I glimpsed a woman in a dark suit standing on the porch with the confident posture of someone accustomed to getting answers. "Dr. Richardson," she called through the door. "Agent Sarah Cole, Department of Homeland Security. I'd like to speak with you." My blood turned to ice. How did they find us so fast? "GPS tracking, probably," Erica whispered, pulling me away from the windows. "Every government vehicle has it now." Agent Cole knocked again, more insistently. "Dr. Richardson, I'm not here to arrest you." I need to explain the situation before others arrive who might be less reasonable. Bennett approached the door cautiously. What do you want? To save Dr. Richardson's life, Cole replied through the wood, and possibly prevent a biological terrorism incident that could kill thousands. The weight of her words settled over us like a shroud. After a moment of tense silence, Bennett unlocked the door. Agent Cole was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with prematurely gray hair and the kind of intense focus that suggested she'd seen too much classified information. She entered alone, hands visible and empty. Dr. Richardson, she said, nodding to me, your blood type isn't just rare. It's the key to neutralizing a synthetic pathogen that was stolen from a government facility 3 weeks ago. Stolen? Erica stepped protectively closer to me. By whom? Unknown actors with sophisticated knowledge of biological warfare agents. Cole's eyes moved between us, assessing. The pathogen is designed to be dispersed through plant pollen carriers. My knees nearly buckled. The orchids. The exposure incidents in Reno. Field testing, Cole confirmed grimly. Someone's been perfecting distribution methods using your city as an unwitting laboratory. And Jessica's blood can stop it? Bennett asked. Her genetic makeup produces antibodies that can neutralize the synthetic proteins. With her blood samples, we can develop vaccines, treatments, maybe even preventative measures. Cole's expression softened slightly, but we need her cooperation, not her captivity. I felt Erica's hand slip into mine, anchoring me to the present moment as my world continued to collapse around me. What are you offering? I asked. Full immunity for both of you, protection from the agencies that want to lock you away indefinitely, and a chance to help stop this pathogen before it's deployed on a larger scale. In exchange for what? Voluntary blood donation, consultation on countermeasure development, and your expertise in allergen research. Cole paused, studying my expression. You have every right to refuse, but thousands of lives hang in the balance. The moral weight was crushing. How could I prioritize my freedom over mass casualties? But how could I trust government promises when agents had been chasing me through parking lots just hours earlier? The other agencies, Erica said, the ones who want to detain Jessica indefinitely. What happens to them? I have authority to classify this as a national security matter requiring specific expertise. That gives me jurisdiction and keeps the more aggressive agencies at bay. Cole met my eyes steadily. I can't make the threat disappear entirely, but I can manage it. Bennett had been quiet throughout this exchange, but now he spoke up. What guarantees do they have? Written agreements? Congressional oversight? All of it, Cole promised. Full documentation, legal protections, and ongoing monitoring to ensure compliance. I looked at Erica, searching her face for guidance. Her blue eyes were full of concern but also understanding. She knew I couldn't walk away from this responsibility, just as I knew she wouldn't ask me to. If I agree, I said slowly, Erica comes with me. Full protection, full disclosure about what we're dealing with. Dr. Sanders is already essential to this operation, Cole said. Her forensic botanical expertise is crucial for understanding the distribution methods. And our relationship? The question felt vulnerable, exposed but necessary. No moral judgments, no attempts to leverage personal connections for cooperation. Cole's expression almost smiled. Dr. Richardson, I'm more concerned with saving lives than policing relationships. Your personal life is irrelevant to national security. The practicality of her response was oddly reassuring. This wasn't about controlling us personally. It was about preventing catastrophe. I need 24 hours to decide, I said. You have 12, Cole replied firmly. The intelligence suggests another test deployment is imminent. We can't wait longer than that. After she left, the three of us sat in the cabin's main room, the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on us. Outside, mountain winds whispered through the pines, indifferent to human complications. What do you think? I asked Bennett. I think Cole is probably sincere, but sincerity doesn't guarantee outcomes. He rubbed his temples wearily. Government promises have a way of evolving once you're committed. But if people are really going to die, Erica said quietly, can we live with ourselves for walking away? Can we live with ourselves if we don't? I countered. She moved closer on the couch, her warmth a comfort against the chaos surrounding us. Whatever you decide, I'll support it. But I think you already know what you're going to do. She was right. Despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite the very real possibility that cooperation would cost us our freedom, I couldn't ignore the moral imperative. I'm going to help them, I said. But on our terms, with our protections, and with full transparency about what they're asking us to do. Erica squeezed my hand. Then that's what we'll do. Together, I added, needing the confirmation. Always together, she promised. By dawn, Bennett's secure cabin no longer felt secure. The sound of helicopters had awakened us twice during the night, and Erica had spotted surveillance drones circling the mountain peaks through her binoculars. They're not waiting for our decision, she said, pacing the main room with the restless energy of a caged predator. Cole might have been sincere, but someone else is calling the shots now. I stood at the window, watching the tree line for movement. 12 hours had become irrelevant. We were out of time and options. We need to leave, I said. Now. Bennett was already packing his research files into a waterproof case. I have another location. More remote, harder to track. How remote? Erica asked, shouldering her backpack. High Sierra wilderness. No roads, no cell service, no way to reach it except on foot. The prospect of hiking into genuine wilderness with government agents hunting us should have terrified me. Instead, I felt oddly liberated. In the mountains, stripped of technology and surveillance, we'd finally be free to think clearly. We left through the cabin's back door, following a game trail that Bennett claimed would take us above the tree line within 6 hours. Behind us, the sound of vehicles approaching on the access road spurred us to move faster. 3 hours into the hike, with Reno's Valley spread far below us like a circuit board, Erica called for a rest stop beside a mountain stream. This is insane, she said, sitting on a granite boulder and pulling out her water bottle. We're running from the people who claim they want to save lives. Because we can't trust them to keep their word once they have what they need, I replied, settling beside her on the sun-warmed stone. The isolation was complete up here. No signs of human presence except the faint contrails of jets crossing the sky. For the first time since fleeing the laboratory, I felt like I could breathe fully. Jessica, Erica said quietly, I need to tell you something. Something in her tone made me turn to face her completely. What is it? Before all this started, before we met, I was planning to leave Nevada, take a position with the FBI's forensic division in Washington. She met my eyes steadily. I'd already accepted the offer. The words hit me like a physical blow. When? Next month. I was going to finish the current cases and transfer east. I stared at her, trying to process this revelation while everything else in my world was already upside down. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm not going. Her hand found mine, fingers interlacing. Because meeting you changed everything I thought I wanted. The simple declaration carried more weight than any passionate speech could have. Here, with federal agents hunting us through mountain wilderness, she was choosing us over career advancement. Erica, I began, but she pressed a finger to my lips. I love you, she said simply. I know it's fast. I know the timing is terrible, but there it is. My heart hammered against my ribs. I love you too. The words came out in a rush, surprising us both with their intensity. We were two rational scientists who'd known each other less than 2 weeks, declaring love while hiding from our own government. It should have felt ridiculous. Instead, it felt like the only sane thing in an insane situation. She leaned forward and kissed me then, soft and sweet under the mountain sun. When we broke apart, both of us were smiling despite everything. So what do we do now? I asked. We survive this, she said firmly. Together. And then we figure out how to build a life that doesn't involve running through wilderness to avoid federal surveillance. Bennett's voice calling from up the trail interrupted our moment. Ladies, we need to keep moving. I can see dust clouds on the access road. We climbed for another 3 hours, following increasingly faint trails through alpine meadows and across exposed granite slabs. My lungs burned in the thin air, and my legs trembled with fatigue, but Erica's presence beside me made each step manageable. Finally, as the sun began its descent toward the western peaks, Bennett led us to a backcountry shelter, a small stone building tucked into a cirque of vertical rock walls. Emergency ranger station, he explained, producing a key from his pack. Abandoned but maintained. We can wait here safely while I figure out our next move. Inside, the shelter was basic but clean, with bunks, a wood stove, and supplies for extended mountain emergencies. As Bennett worked to establish secure communications with his congressional contacts, Erica and I prepared a simple meal from the emergency rations. Hard to believe this morning we were worried about laboratory deadlines, I said, stirring canned soup over the camp stove. This morning feels like a lifetime ago. She moved behind me, her arms encircling my waist. But I meant what I said earlier, about choosing this, choosing us. I leaned back against her warmth, marveling at how right it felt even in our impossible circumstances. Even if it means giving up everything we've worked for? What have we worked for, really? Jobs? Careers? Publications? Her breath was warm against my ear. Those are just things we do. This is who we are. After dinner, while Bennett worked his political connections via encrypted satellite phone, Erica and I spread our sleeping bags together on one of the bunks. The stone walls provided complete privacy, and for the first time since fleeing Reno, we had space to reconnect as more than just fugitives. Our lovemaking was different here, urgent, desperate, fueled by the knowledge that our future remained utterly uncertain. In the mountain darkness, with only starlight filtering through small windows, we clung to each other with the passion of people who'd found something precious and might lose it at any moment. Afterward, lying in her arms with the silence of high altitude surrounding us, I felt a peace that had nothing to do with our circumstances, and everything to do with the woman whose heartbeat provided the rhythm for my thoughts. Bennett's right, you know, she whispered into the darkness. About the pathogen. If it's real, if it's as dangerous as Cole claimed, we can't just run forever. I know. I traced patterns on her bare shoulder, memorizing the texture of her skin. But I also know that once we surface, once we cooperate, everything changes. Maybe change isn't all bad. Maybe not. I kissed the pulse point at her throat. As long as we change together. Always together, she confirmed, pulling me closer in the mountain darkness. Outside, the wilderness kept its ancient vigil, indifferent to human complications but somehow protective in its vastness. For tonight at least, we were safe, we were together, and we were free. Tomorrow would bring new decisions and fresh dangers, but tonight was ours. Dawn arrived with the sound of Bennett's encrypted phone ringing insistently from across the shelter. Through the small window, I could see helicopters circling the distant peaks like mechanical vultures, their search patterns growing closer. They found us, Erica said quietly, already pulling on her clothes. Time to make our choice. Bennett's conversation was terse, filled with the kind of coded language that suggested serious negotiations happening at the highest levels. When he finally hung up, his expression was a mixture of relief and concern. Good news and bad news, he said. Cole has convinced her superiors to honor protection agreements, but only if you surrender voluntarily within the next 4 hours. And the bad news? I asked, though I suspected I already knew. If you don't, jurisdiction transfers to Defense Intelligence, and they have authorization to take you by any means necessary. Through the window, the helicopters were definitely closer now, their rotor noise echoing off the granite walls surrounding our refuge. We were trapped in a stone bowl with only one way out. 4 hours, Erica repeated, barely enough time to get back down to the valley. Actually, Bennett said carefully, Cole is offering to meet us halfway. There's a meadow about 2 hours down the trail where helicopters can land safely. Neutral ground, I said. Or as neutral as anything gets when one side has helicopters. I moved to the window, studying the search patterns above. Part of me wanted to stay hidden forever in these mountains, living off emergency rations and making love under starlight. But the rational scientist in me knew that was impossible, and the human being in me couldn't ignore the potential consequences of inaction. I'm going to do it, I announced. Cooperate with Cole's team, provide the blood samples, help develop countermeasures. Erica was beside me instantly. Are you sure? No, but I can't live with myself if people die because I was too scared to help. I turned to face both of them. The question is whether you trust Cole enough to believe her promises. Bennett considered this seriously. I've spent the last 18 hours vetting her through back channels. Her record suggests integrity, but more importantly, she has genuine congressional oversight watching this operation. Oversight by whom? Senator Patricia Hayes, chair of the Intelligence Committee. Hayes has a reputation for protecting whistleblowers and limiting executive overreach. Bennett's expression became almost optimistic. If anyone can keep you safe from the more aggressive agencies, it's her. That name I recognized. Hayes had made headlines for investigating surveillance abuses and protecting researchers from government intimidation. Having her involved changed the dynamic significantly. "What about us?" Erica asked. "Our relationship, our future together?" "That's not negotiable," I said firmly. "Whatever I agree to, you're part of it. Full partnership, full protection, full disclosure." We spent the next hour preparing to descend, packing essential gear while leaving behind anything that might suggest flight, rather than voluntary cooperation. As we prepared to leave our temporary sanctuary, Bennett pulled me aside. "Jessica, I need you to understand something. Once you step into that meadow, once you shake Agent Cole's hand, there's no going back. You'll be part of the system whether you want to be or not." I know. The weight of that reality pressed down on me like the thin mountain air. "But staying here isn't really an option, is it?" "No," he admitted sadly. "It's not." The hike down felt like walking toward an uncertain fate. With each step, we left behind the wild freedom of the high country and moved closer to the civilized complications waiting below. Erica walked beside me, our hands occasionally brushing as we navigated rocky sections of trail. "No regrets?" she asked as we approached the designated meadow. "About us? Never." I squeezed her hand briefly. "About everything else? Ask me in a year?" The meadow opened before us like a natural amphitheater, surrounded by towering pines and crossed by a crystal stream. 2 helicopters sat in the grass like sleeping metal insects, their crews standing at respectful distances. Agent Cole waited in the meadow's center, accompanied by a woman in civilian clothes whom I didn't recognize. As we approached, Cole stepped forward with the careful movements of someone trying not to spook wild animals. "Dr. Richardson, Dr. Sanders, Dr. Bennett. Thank you for coming down voluntarily. Agent Cole." I stopped 10 feet away, maintaining distance while I assessed the situation. "I assume you have documentation for the agreements we discussed?" "All of it." She gestured to the civilian woman. "This is Senator Hayes' Chief of Staff, Rachel Martinez. She's here to ensure compliance with congressional oversight requirements." Martinez stepped forward with a briefcase full of legal documents. "Everything's in writing, Dr. Richardson. Protection agreements, research parameters, personal privacy guarantees." Senator Hayes insisted on ironclad language. I spent 20 minutes reviewing the documents while Erica read over my shoulder, both of us looking for loopholes or ambiguous language that could be exploited later. The agreements were surprisingly comprehensive, covering everything from voluntary participation to relationship protections. "This clause about termination," Erica pointed out. "We can withdraw cooperation at any time?" "With reasonable notice and transition planning," Martinez confirmed. "You're not indentured servants. You're consultants with very specific expertise." The distinction was important, both legally and psychologically. Consultants had rights, options, the ability to negotiate terms. Captives had none of those things. "And our personal security?" I asked. "Full protection, new identities if necessary, relocation assistance." Cole's expression was serious. "We understand that your safety may be compromised by this cooperation." After another hour of questions and clarifications, I looked at Erica and saw my own decision reflected in her blue eyes. We'd analyzed the situation from every angle, considered every option, evaluated every risk. "I'll do it," I said simply. "We'll do it. But as equal partners in whatever comes next." Cole's relief was visible. "Thank you, both of you. You're potentially saving thousands of lives." As we boarded the helicopter that would take us back to civilization, I watched the meadow recede below us and felt the weight of the choice settling into my bones. We were leaving our brief taste of freedom behind, trading it for the chance to make a difference in a crisis we'd never chosen. But we were leaving together, and that made all the difference. Erica's hand found mine across the helicopter's cabin, her fingers interlacing with mine as we flew toward an uncertain but shared future. 6 months after that helicopter ride changed everything. I stood on a cliff overlooking the Oregon coast, watching Erica arrange white roses in a simple bouquet. The small coastal town of Bandon had become our refuge, our new beginning, our carefully constructed paradise built on government promises that had, miraculously, been kept. The pathogen crisis had been resolved within weeks of our cooperation. My blood samples had indeed provided the key to developing effective countermeasures, though the details remained classified at levels I preferred not to think about. Erica's botanical expertise had helped trace the distribution networks back to a private military contractor that was now facing federal prosecution. Agent Cole had been true to her word. We'd been provided with new identities, financial security, and the kind of protection that let us disappear completely from our old lives. Jessica Richardson and Erica Sanders were officially deceased, victims of a tragic hiking accident in the Sierra Nevada. In their place, Sarah Mitchell and Elena Cooper had emerged, two consulting scientists who'd chosen to semi-retire to a quiet coastal community. "You're thinking too hard again," Erica said, joining me at the cliff's edge. The sunset painted her face in shades of gold and amber, making her blue eyes look almost otherworldly. "Just remembering how we got here." I accepted the small bouquet she offered, inhaling the rose's sweet fragrance. Sometimes it feels like a dream. The running through mountains with federal agents chasing us, or the part where we saved thousands of lives? The part where I found you. She smiled, that same expression that had captivated me in the botanical gardens what felt like a lifetime ago. "Found each other," she corrected gently. Below us, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly westward, its surface broken by seabirds diving for their evening meal. Our small consulting business, Mitchell Cooper Environmental Solutions, had proven surprisingly successful, combining her forensic skills with my research background to help local agencies with environmental contamination cases. It wasn't the prestigious academic career either of us had planned, but it was ours, built together from the ruins of our old lives. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. I nodded, taking her hand as we walked to the spot she'd chosen for our private ceremony. Dr. Bennett waited there, having driven up from California to serve as our witness. The years had been kind to him. He'd parlayed his role in our case into a position advising congressional oversight committees on research ethics. The ceremony itself was simple, unofficial but deeply meaningful. We'd written our own vows, promises that acknowledged both the extraordinary circumstances that had brought us together and our determination to build something lasting from the chaos. "I promise to choose you," I said, my voice carrying across the clifftop wind, "in every crisis, every quiet moment, every uncertain tomorrow." "I promise to stand with you," Erica replied, her words steady despite the tears streaming down her cheeks, "whether we're running from helicopters or growing old in rocking chairs." Bennett pronounced us married by the authority invested in friendship and surviving the impossible together. As Erica and I kissed with the sunset blazing behind us, I felt the final pieces of our new life clicking into place. The reception was just the three of us, sharing wine and stories on the deck of our rented cottage while waves crashed against the rocks below. Bennett regaled us with updates from the academic world we'd left behind, carefully avoiding any details that might compromise our new identities. "Any regrets?" he asked as the evening wound down. Erica and I exchanged a look full of shared history and private jokes. About leaving our old lives? I considered the question seriously. Sometimes I miss the research, the discovery process. But not enough to go back, Erica added, not when this feels so much more real. Later, after Bennett had retired to the guest room, we walked the moonlit beach hand in hand, our bare feet leaving temporary impressions in the sand. "Mrs. Cooper," Erica said experimentally. "I like the sound of that, Mrs. Mitchell." I stopped walking and pulled her into my arms, though I still can't believe we're actually married. "Legally speaking, we're not," she pointed out practically. "Sarah Mitchell and Elena Cooper are fictional people. But Jessica and Erica are real, and they're absolutely completely married. We made love that night with the sound of waves providing a natural rhythm, celebrating not just our union but our survival of everything that had tried to tear us apart. In the darkness of our bedroom, with salt air drifting through open windows, we created our own small infinity. The following morning brought the familiar routine of our new life. Coffee on the deck, checking emails from potential clients, planning the day's work. But underneath the domestic tranquility, I felt the deep satisfaction of having built something genuine from the wreckage of chaos. "What do you think happens next?" I asked, scrolling through consulting inquiries on my laptop. "We grow old together," Erica said matter-of-factly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "We help people solve environmental problems. We take long walks on the beach. We argue about whose turn it is to cook dinner. That simple? The best things usually are." As if to prove her point, she leaned over and kissed me softly, tasting of morning coffee and endless possibilities. Outside our window, seabirds called to each other across the waves, their voices carrying promises of another day, another chance to choose love over fear. I closed my laptop and kissed her back, surrendering to the simple miracle of ordinary happiness. We'd survived government conspiracies, biological weapons, and federal manhunts. Building a quiet life together seemed easy by comparison. The sun climbed higher over the Oregon coast, painting our future in shades of gold and possibility. And for the first time since that day in the botanical gardens when we'd reached for the same impossible flower, I felt completely, perfectly at peace.